And we're back. You're listening to the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Show. Glad you could join us. Don't forget about my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to the Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. You can actually get a copy of my book right now by visiting Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. It's a story of Tom Molyneux, who, he was born a slave, was forced into fighting, won his freedom, and became the most recognizable figure in the world during his lifetime, and he's virtually forgotten today. Get a copy of the book. Learn why I'm so pissed that this guy is not only a forgotten piece of boxing history, he's a forgotten piece of American history, and he's also a forgotten piece of Black American history, and it's a great time to learn about this guy during this month of Black History Month. And also, don't forget about Normandy Gym. We've been talking to you about Normandy Gym. It's a great place, especially if you're a pro fighter and you want to go and focus on your next fight. You got to set up a camp at Normandy Gym. Find out why world champion Sergey Kovalev and future Hall of Famer Bernard Hopkins and former champion Lucien Boutte and many, many others have gone down to Miami and camped out at Normandy Gym and set up their fight camp to prepare for their biggest fights of their career. And who was always involved with this? Well, the guy I keep telling you about, Danny Hawk. And speaking of Danny Hawk, we're going to be launching a new segment right now. And joining me on the line is the man himself, Danny Hawk. What's up, brother?
What's up, Billy C? How you doing, man?
Not too bad, man. Glad you guys could join us, or you could join us. And I've been talking a lot about the Normandy Gym. And, of course, our segment that you and I have talked about for the last several weeks, and I've been, telling the listeners about it. But before we start with that, tell us a little about the gym. I know you're originally a New Yorker. You went down to Miami. You opened up this gym. You guys are doing great. You got some great young fighters, one that I had the pleasure of meeting, Victor DeRocha. Tell us about the Normandy Gym.
Well, the gym got its start down here in 2002. I got down here in '97. Boxing's been in my family for my whole life. Since I was a kid. My Danny Hawk. Hawk is actually a nickname that stuck with me since the '60s and the '70s back in Brooklyn. All my friends. You could remember. The kids in New York. They all had nicknames, and Hawk stuck with me. So I was known as Danny Hawk, and here I am. I still got that nickname, but. That stems from my dad. My dad was born in Cuba in 1926. Along with another guy. Maybe I'm going to test your acumen a little bit here, Billy. But a fellow by the name of I got it right here. I even forgot it for a moment myself. Gerard Gonzalez. Who is that? Who's Gerard Gonzalez?
Gerard Gonzalez?
Yep.
What year?
Gerard Gonzalez. I'll lead you in on it. He's AKA Kid Gavilan.
I got Kid Gavilan's trunks right behind me, right here. I have a signed. I met Kid Gavilan. He signed a pair of trunks for me, and I was gonna. I didn't realize that was his that was his name. That doesn't ring a bell.
Well, I looked it up for the first time myself. In fact, today. Because I just knew him as Kid Gavilan, and my father was talking about the kid. But they grew up together in Cuba. My father was born to Polish parents in Cuba. They immigrated from my grandparents immigrated from Poland, and somehow, some way, they got stuck over there. Doing some kind of immigration hold in the United States. But they originally wanted to go to New York. But rather than go back to Poland, they like a lot of other families, over there decided to, 90 miles, from Cuba is Miami, so they're closer to the United States. So in their mind, and they're thinking that they wanted to stay there rather than go back to Poland, go through the whole process again. So my grandfather opened up a dry cleaning business there, and my father used to work in the sugarcane fields, and that's how he met Kid Gavilan. They both worked together in the sugarcane fields, and as the story goes, my father used to say that's how Kid Gavilan got that, his famous bolo punch, from swinging that machete around, 8 hours a day in the sugarcane fields and cutting the cane. And not only did it get him incredibly strong, but it developed that famous bolo punch. So when when I was a kid, my father nicknamed me the Little Hawk. My brother was the Bigger Hawk. My brother 10 years my senior, and it stuck with me. So that's a little bit of a history there. So my father did actually. He was a fighter in Cuba, more on the amateur level. And back then in Cuba, they actually, for a while, they disallowed, public boxing events. So there's a lot of underground stuff going on. And, as it turns out, as my father told me, they fell in love. Him and Kid Gavilan both fell in love with the same girl, a local girl there in the neighborhood or whatever. And they actually had a little impromptu boxing match themselves. Don't ask me who got the better of that. I don't know, but that's a little bit of a background on how I got involved in boxing, and a lot from my father. My father was a big Teofilo Stevenson fan, followed boxing, a lot of the Cuban fighters. He always thought Teofilo would come in and fight Ali and probably give Ali a very good fight, if not beat him. So he always regretted that fight never transpired. But we'd watch the black and white boxing, back in the day, all day long with my old man. So that's how I got my start in boxing. So he showed me the ropes. Every once in a while I was a little bit of a punk kid, and he'd show me his jab and his hook, and that kind of stuff stuck with me. So here we are in Miami, and I opened the gym in 2002. Got down here in '97 for a job, at the Florida Paralight Company, and decided to open up the Normandy gym. And it's been a great experience. We've had a lot of good exposure. Miami is a great place for boxing. It's a mecca, I would say, for some of the greatest sparring. You got the Cuban national champs that come in all the time. Obviously, you got the Haitian fighters that are good. You got Colombian fighters. So you got a good mix, of good sparring down here for any of our pros. And I'm working with a couple of kids now that are doing very well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool stuff about Kid Gavilan, because he was one of my favorite. It's funny because he was one of my favorite fighters. That's what I'm saying. I literally right behind me, I have two pairs of signed trunks. One Kid Gavilan, and the other is Joe Frazier, and they're in a case right behind me. But that's good stuff. And yeah, he was the one that's the story, that he developed the bolo punch from hacking the sugarcane in Cuba. So that's good stuff, man. I didn't know that. I didn't know you had that connection. That's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I figured I'd add that one.
That's good. That's good. So I've been talking about, before we get into explaining what we're going to be doing here with your segment, I've been talking about the Normandy Gym as a really good location for fighters, really of all experience levels, if they wanted to go down there and set up a camp, and get away from all the distractions that usually follow a fighter, young or old, when they're preparing for maybe the most important fight of their career, or maybe just any fight that they want to get away from those distractions. What does Normandy Gym provide these guys and their teams so that they could have the limited stress and focus on their upcoming bout? How do you stand above all the rest?
Well, we're an old school gym down here, and we don't have any air conditioning. Obviously, we that's our claim to fame, that when anybody walks in a little overweight, they usually come out 10 pounds lighter.
Oh man, I should be hanging out there more often then, huh?
So we got the fighters love to come down to Miami in general. It's a hot weather. Hopkins is down here all the time. We had the pleasure of having Bernard and B-Hop for his bout. Way back in 2008 when he first came in. Actually, it was a comeback fight, the Pavlik fight for him, as you know. He did his whole entire training camp here, and we had HBO in. They did that, I guess, a little bit of a 24/7 with when he was in for the Jones camp, because he also he trained here for his rematch with Jones in April of 2010, and he called the gym the closest thing to training in hell because of the heat and the intensity of what the work is like in the ring when it is that hot. I mean, when you take he would take off his headgear and his head protector, and you could see the steam coming right off the top of his head. So, but also, he loved it. Bernard is like, I tell you, he's something to watch. It's one thing to see him, on TV and everything else, but I had the pleasure of watching him, and all his defensive moves, right close up, here in the gym, for a couple of camps, and it's to answer your question, the gym is a hard-edged environment. It's tough because of the heat, but when a fighter trains in this type of environment, it builds up his stamina, and then when he goes into a cooler climate, even in an air-conditioned casino or whatever, he feels like he can go all day long.
I know we want to get into this your training segment, but I want to ask you a question. You got me thinking, especially with B-Hop. He's considered an old school fighter, a throwback fighter. He's maybe even one of the last guys that you could say that about. With the way he fights defensively and plays his mind games and backs it up with with actions and stuff. And obviously, despite him calling himself the alien now, saying he's going to keep fighting, and he's a freak of nature. But what do you see as a guy that's been around the sport for as long as you have, and being able to admire a guy like Bernard Hopkins training in your gym? What do you see when you see a lot of the young kids that come in? I mean, it just seems to me, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me like a lot of the youth today, and I don't mean to be blaming the youth, but they're kind of soft a little bit. They don't have that same drive and desire to put their bodies through what some of these older fighters used to. I don't know any other better way of saying it than to toughen them up. Do you find that it's hard to get younger people into the sport because of that? Or, I mean, am I totally wrong? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, in Bernard's case, the guy he's a consummate sportsman. I mean, he lives, eats, and breathes the sport. Even when he's not training, I think if you called his house at 9 o'clock, his wife wouldn't let you wake him up. And he's to bed early. He rises. He still does his running in the morning down here in Miami Beach. He does his running way before the sun comes up. So he's got that inherent discipline, that comes, that drive, I guess, from only the old school guys have, and him being a Philly fighter, he's hard edged, and just watching him, negate power in the ring. That was the one thing that impressed me the most. That he had a lot of sparring that came in for Pavlik and for Jones, guys like Gabriel Rosado, Glenn Johnson. I think Tavares Cloud even mixed it up with him. So he had real tough guys, and sometimes I would see that he would put in like his one of the biggest and the strongest guys, even guys that are up there and heavier in weight. He was in at 175, and he would get guys in like almost like cruiserweights, and he would put some of those guys in last in the lineup for the sparring. So he was never afraid of that, because he always knows he can negate a guy's power, which kind of like falls into them punches. Like moves in after he throws a punch, grabs, holds, turns. Very clever in that respect, in that aspect. But as far as any of the newer guys that we had coming in watching him, he was just an inspiration to them. It was, they would always say, "Wow, I want to be able to backstep like B-Hop, and I want to be able to do that little Jersey Joe Walcott thing that he's got going on there when he moves." So he was always inspirational. So, the kids know what it takes when they watch a guy like that.
Yeah, no, that's good. You can't. Yeah, he's an ambassador of the sport, really. Especially with the youth. I'm glad to hear that they responded like that. But all right, so what we've been talking about is something I've been wanting to do on this show for a long time, and I'm glad that together we decided that this is something that you should man and do. And just so the viewers and listeners know, what Danny's going to start doing is coming on a regular basis, and we're going to act like you just walked into his gym. Even a fat bastard like me, I walk into his gym. What is Danny going to make me do? A lot of things. I owned a gym one time, and everybody that came in, the first thing they wanted to do was spar. Everybody wants to put headgear on and spar, and we wouldn't let them do that. And what I want, Danny and I are going to try to, or Danny's going to present it in a way of, if you walked into his gym, what he's going to make you do in order to train and learn how to fight. Or learn how to box, I should say. We might as well use the right terms. So why don't you start right like that, Danny? Somebody walks into the place and they say, "Hey, I've never put on a pair of gloves. I don't know anything about the sport of boxing. I want to join the gym. I want you to teach me how to box." So we're in the very first minute we walk in the gym, and after you collect their gym fees, what are you going to tell these guys?
First off, what is their budget like? I get people that come in all the time, and that most of the people, their budget suits, just joining group classes, joining a gym. We've got over 50 classes a week here. The cardio boxing classes, the build up cardio and stamina and whatnot. And some people only have the the money to do that, but others just come right in. They say, no, I don't want to do the group thing. I want to do the one-on-one, and I want you to start me out with it. And so my question to those people, first off, the questions that I have is, do you have are you okay physically to start? Does your doctor say, especially if the person's overweight, are you, does your doctor say that you're okay to start, a cardio intense program, because that's what you're going to, get yourself into? Things, questions like, do you have asthma, high blood pressure, things like that might get overlooked, if you just bring somebody in and then, you put them in the ring and then you put gloves on them and you hold pads, and then you find out, oh, the guy's got asthma. That's not the time to find out. You want to ask the questions ahead of time. So as far as those basic questions, like regarding their overall health and wellness, how do they feel? Have they been exercising? Have they been doing any type of cardio? Do they jog? I could pretty much size up a person by looking at them as to whether or not they're ready to do any type of, even moving around with their hands up and doing like some foot movement and stuff like that. Some people are just grossly, out of shape, and they just, the last thing you want to do is get their heart rate up, to where they're going to overwhelm themselves. So, after you get past that, then, if they want to go ahead one-on-one, then I would basically start them out really, really simple. Some of the rope work that we do, even for the pros, put a clothesline up in the ring so they can get their head movement and their foot movement going, build up their stamina a little bit so they, I make sure that, they can keep their hands up to protect themselves, even without gloves being on. I mean, there's no gloves, no pads, no nothing. It's just a straight out, a few weeks of just moving around the ring a little bit under the rope and, working on the basics. So that's how we would start out in that respect.
Okay, but I walk in lesson one, right? You sit me down. I tell you, I'm gonna say it's me. I'm gonna say, yeah, I'm in terrible shape. I don't run. I run to the refrigerator. That's about it. But I want to get in shape and I want to learn how to box. So my very first assignment, what are you gonna do for my first lesson? Like, what would I expect to do? Are you going to give me a diet and tell me, follow this diet, come back tomorrow, we start, or are you going to tell me, here, this is what I want you to do for the next 2 weeks, and here I want you to go do X, Y, Z? I mean, what are you going to have me do if I'm the guy?
Well, if they're going to come in, let's say they're going to work with me directly like 3 times a week, so I would have them set up a schedule that, we would do that, just what I told you about, the ring work, the basic, ring work without pads, without any type of contact or whatever. And then I would recommend, on an off day, off days of not training with me, maybe once or twice, come take a group class to continue building the cardio, building up their stamina, their strength. And there's no sense in even thinking about holding pads for somebody if they don't have that the cardio conditioning or the stamina. They're just, you're just taking their money away, and I don't do that.
But here's the thing, Danny. If you're talking to a person that doesn't know a left hook from a fish hook, I mean, the pads and stringing a line in the ring to help with their head movement is way past where this person is. So, I mean, is there something you start them with? Like, what's the very first thing? Are they doing? Is it more of exercise? When do they actually get into, learning the fundamentals of boxing? I mean, obviously a person that's never fought.
I generally, for everybody, I set the ring clock for 3 minutes, 3 minute on, 1 minute rest, just like, the pros, pro rounds. I have them move for the 3 minutes. I see how they're doing. Again, if the legs are good, and they're not puffing and panting where they got to stop, sweating profusely, then we start working on, the basic jabs, again, no gloves, jabs, right hands, hooks, moving ahead a little bit. I move them around the ring. And once they feel good about that, we put the wraps on, put the gloves on a little bit. Maybe I'll hold the pad, have them pop a jab. But that's, that takes about, I would say from start to that period of time, about 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay.
3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, because that's what I'm saying. Like, so, the first thing you're going to show somebody is a jab. So if you were going to tell me, if you were going to say to me, how you say, okay, I want you to throw a couple of jabs, and I say to you, what's a jab? And then you go, oh God, now you know where you're at, right, with this student. What do you tell them? That's where we want to start. Let's pretend
I usually don't even, I start with a number, like the jab will be a 1, and that's the 1 punch. The right cross will be a 2 punch. The left hook will be a 3. The right hook will be a 4. The left uppercut 5, and the right uppercut is 6. So I assign a number to the punches. So, and we may stay on the 1 for like until I feel as though it's a proper jab. We may stay on that 1 for a couple of weeks,
right,
until we even introduce the number 2, which is the cross. And then once we get the individual punches down, then you could start with some simple 1-2 combinations, but not until you got the basic punches down and the fundamentals behind the numbers. I use the numbers.
Now, I know. I remember Kevin Rooney. He still used to play the Customato tapes in the gym, and you heard Cuss's voice yelling out numbers. But so the first thing I guess somebody's going to learn after they go through some cardio and stuff is to throw a jab. So how would you instruct somebody to throw a jab?
Well, the jab is there's 3 ways to throw a jab, and I work with the pros the same way. There's that outside jab when you're controlling distance. Let's say you got somebody in the middle of the ring, and you're controlling that distance. If your opponent is staying in the middle of the ring, you got that distance jab. If that person doesn't close distance on you, you can use that jab all day long. It's a long jab. It's more to the side. It's more angular. You got that left foot in front. Obviously, the right foot can be a little further back, because again, they're not closing distance. You're maintaining distance, and you're using a stiff jab. I call that the outside jab, basically. And I put it into zones. I call that zone 1. So for me, with my guys, it's called zone 1. So if I tell them, you're in zone 1, because we have little codes. Obviously, we try and keep what we're doing in the ring. Even with the pro fights. My instructions, we try and have our own little codes. I don't want to just go out and say something where the other guy's going to hear it and make an adjustment. So, zone 1 is kind of giving a little bit of my strategy away here, but that's okay. The zone 1 for me is the distance jab. In other words, your opponent is in the middle of the ring. You got distance on him. He's staying there, and you can pop to the body. You can pop to the head. So again, as I said, it's more of an angle type jab. It's one that where your right foot, you're not looking to land that right hand. You're not going to reach with the right hand, because you're controlling distance with the jab. In order for you to reach with the right hand on the number 2, you're going to have to you get that right foot going, forward a little bit. We're not doing that in that zone. We are just completely on, you ever see Klitschko uses it very good. Both brothers, Vladimir and Vitaly. They would get up. It's kind of like I call it the Russian jab. It's like they're on their toes a little bit, and they're just popping that long jab and just keeping that guy at bay in the middle of the ring. So that's one jab we use. The second one is the zone 2 jab. The zone 2 jab is a jab that is used primarily at close distance. And I've had the pleasure of having Glenn Johnson, who to me, is one of the greatest light heavyweights that ever put on gloves. Fantastic. And that zone 2 jab, I pretty much, seen how Glenn used it, how effective he was, especially against Roy in that first, his first opportunity to knock Roy out. He put that pressure on with that. It's a short, I call it, it's a hammer jab. It's at the top of your head. You keep both hands, directly up, protecting like almost the temple, the temples on each side, the right and the left, and you step hard straight with that jab. It goes right down the strike zone. It's a tough jab. It's a tough punch to develop because a lot of guys like to pull their power from the outside. They try and pull all that shoulder power. But this jab is a straight jab. I call it the hammer jab because if you can envision, if I could draw this analogy for it, you have a hammer in your hand. Let's say it's your left hand, and you're going to hold that hammer at the top of your head, right near your forehead, and you're just going to come down with that hammer, and that's your fist, okay? And if you watch any of Glenn's fights and his tapes, you see the amount of pressure he puts on a guy just by pop. That jab comes out of nowhere. It's a very direct punch. I love it. It's a great one at close distance. So that's my second style of jab that we employ here at the gym, and I teach guys. And the third one is, let's say we got the outside, we got the hammer jab, and we just got that medium range jab. A little bit of a combination of both of those. So those are my 3 favorites.
Interesting. We're gonna pick up where you left off there next time, but we're gonna try to incorporate some video here so we can get some demonstration at least, and you could just do it from a demonstration point of view and not divulge any any codes, especially since for anybody that's watching or listening, Danny obviously is an active trainer right now. He works with several professional fighters, and the concern is anybody watching could learn some of the codes that they communicate.
They can hear it. It don't matter, but to really make it work, especially that last jab I was telling you about, it's something that you really visually have to see. So,
right.
You're right. Maybe we can get some videos going.
Yeah. When we'll set that up. I'll set something up next time I come down. I'll set something up hopefully sooner than later, and we will move forward with this as often as you have the time, man, because it's something I've been wanting to do for several years, and I'm glad you're interested in doing this, and hopefully we can get some people to come down and utilize your facility for camps, saying, quoting Bernard Hopkins saying it's worse than hell might not be a good selling point, but who knows? Maybe you got to suffer to win, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, I had a guy like a cruiserweight in from Spain. His name was David Quinonero. I think he was 22-0 at the time when I got him, and by the time we were done with his camp here, we got a fight for him in Pennsylvania at the time. It was, I think, a Lionheart Boxing Promotions fight. And a guy by the name of Ed Mendy, who was a real gentleman. He, because we were trying to, at the time, cruiserweight's really, it was a tough division to get anybody fighting, especially a 22-0 type guy that was, looking to get a money fight. Well, anyway, we got an introduction, to the United States with David in Pennsylvania against, I think his name was Anthony McKinney. Anyway, a veteran opponent, and a tough guy. And after David, spent a couple of months down here with us at the gym, we took him to Pennsylvania, and he knocked him out in in the 4th round. And this guy was a tough guy, and he would always stay in there for the round. So David told me after the fight, he says, I felt like I could go for like 2 days straight, with all the training and the heat. So again, that's the benefit of the gym. It builds up the stamina and the integrity in a fighter. That's for sure.
Well, listen,
thanks for the time today.
Listen, my man, I appreciate your time, and I look forward to the next episode we get you on, and I want you to give my best to Vic DeRocha. I know he's working hard, and I'm looking forward to seeing him again in the ring soon. And the big guy, Steve, man. So make sure. What's that?
Victor and I are catching a flight out to Dominican Republic tomorrow, and Steve's fighting on a all-star boxing. Steve Kiernan, up-and-coming heavyweight, tough kid from Brooklyn, as a matter of fact. He came down here to establish his career, and he's doing really good. He'll be fighting on an all-star boxing card on March the 4th in Tampa. So we're prepping for that.
Beautiful. Well, listen, man, I'll be talking to you soon, and we look forward to the next time, all right?
Thank you, Billy C.
All right, brother. Take care. That's my man, Danny Hawk from the Normandy Gym in Miami. You can go up to our website, www.billycboxing.com, and you're going to find on the right-hand side where all the columns, you're going to see one that says Danny Hawk. When you click that, you'll get all of the information. As a matter of fact, we're going to break out Danny's episodes. We're going to put them up there. All the contact information, links to his website, all that stuff is going to be right there. Real easy to find him. Give him a call. Tell him Billy C sent you. I got to take a break. And I'll be back in 2.